Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important topic. Tonight we'll be highlighting Egypt's inclusive sustainable development strategy. This strategy, which is based upon the principles of the inclusive sustainable development as well as balanced regional development, emphasized by the full participation of all the country's apparatuses and ensuring its yield to all bodies. The strategy as well considers equal opportunities for all and efficient use of resources to ensure the rights of future generations. No doubt Egypt has made significant and multifaceted efforts through establishing mega projects, encouraging a national industry, attracting foreign investments for a wide range of economic activities, and developing its experts' capabilities. The leadership spares no effort, or has already spared no effort, to improve the country's standing as the image of a nation that dramatically influence its economic vitality, allows it to take part in the world competition. And definitely in this regard, the state has managed to launch several mega projects throughout the last years, or the past 9 years. As a result, Egypt is witnessing a drastic change with various accomplishments and planning its path to the future in a way that consolidate its global image. This is what we will be focusing tonight in our show. Before we delve into our discussion, let me first have this quick report. And President Sisi calls for low-cost financing to support emerging markets. Let's watch.
President Abdel al-Sisi emphasized the need for additional low-cost funding for emerging countries, addressing the challenges posed by the global economic conditions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russian-Ukrainian crisis. His remarks came during the panel discussion on the role of development banks in mobilizing private capitals to invest in infrastructure, held on the sidelines of the annual meetings of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB, in Sharm el-Sheikh. President el-Sisi acknowledged the vital importance of infrastructure development across various sectors and highlighted the significant efforts made by Egypt over the past 8 years to bridge its infrastructure gap, noting that the country has worked to establish basic infrastructure in all fields such as energy and transportation. Expressing his pleasure at hosting the conference after a 3-year hiatus, President el-Sisi extended a warm welcome to the bank governors, finance ministers, and all attendees of the AIIB meetings. This marked the first in-person gathering of the bank in 3 years. Giving credit to the AIIB for its accomplishments, President el-Sisi praised the bank's achievements, which have positioned it as the second national development bank, with a financial portfolio of $1.3 billion in Egypt and a Fitch rating of AAA. The AIIB has provided over $44 billion for more than 200 projects. Underlining the significance of the private sector's role in Egypt's economic and infrastructural development, President el-Sisi emphasized the government's commitment to equal opportunities for all sectors. He highlighted the efforts made by the Supreme Council of Investment, which has issued more than 22 decisions aimed at providing incentives and enabling the private sector to operate effectively in the Egyptian market. The AIIB's annual meeting was scheduled from September 25th till September 26th represents a significant milestone, as it is the first meeting held by the bank in Africa. This gathering serves as a platform for discussions and collaborations aimed at fostering sustainable development and addressing challenges faced by emerging economies. President el-Sisi's call for low-cost funding echoes the pressing need to support emerging countries in overcoming economic challenges and ensuring their continued growth and resilience in the face of global crisis. As the AIIB convenes in Africa, it is anticipated that fruitful discussions and strategic initiatives will emerge to pave the way for a brighter future for emerging economies worldwide.
Right, welcome back. And before we start with our discussion, let me first welcome our guest here, Dr. Hisham Abdel, Salam, Economic Development Advisor. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be here, thank you.
Thank you, my pleasure. And yes, President Sisi and the leadership has exerted tremendous efforts to push Egypt towards the ranks of developed countries. And that was made clear by the development projects the state started to launch. How do you assess so far the Egyptian strategic vision for development?
Sure. The progress so far has been quite impressive in terms of both the size and the achievements of these projects. I was very impressed by the Suez Canal project that was completed 2 years ahead of plan back in 2015. Other mega projects such as the National Transport Network, of course the electricity grid upgrades, Suez Canal Economic Free Zone, and the others, and others that we will discuss through the interview. The major observation, in my view, is how this contributes to the overall situation of important criteria in Egypt, such as employment, creating jobs, the standards of living, the attraction of foreign direct investment, and the others. So as far as the vision and the original plans, my view is that we have been on track. Certain projects have been completed ahead of schedules. Others are, I mean, one of the major ones that will impact all of us next year is the national rail network that is due to be completed next year. That is going to make a huge change in our lives. So yes, it's been quite a successful development so far.
In that sense of what you spoke about, sir, we have to divide what you said into sections. And those sections can be divided into locations, geographically, and into segments, and into sectors.
Sure.
So location in terms of the developmental projects were made in across the whole state at large. I mean, here the leadership did not start in one part and neglected the other. No, it was a kind of a wide span to all projects across all the governorates across the country. This is from one side. The second would be sectors, in which you spoke about energy and stations in the network of the power and grids, but also we're speaking about agriculture, we're speaking about industry, we're speaking about different sectors that has been very much emphasized. Segments, which means the society and the segments of the society, and to which extent the country has been able to go in parallel with its inevitable plans, and at the same time try as much as possible to minimize the burden on the shoulders of people. So let's start with the first, which is projects across all the governorates of Egypt, and how this went in parallel with Egypt's 2030 vision for sustainable development.
Sure. Let's be realistic. This is a huge country. We are 1 million square kilometers and over 100 million people, and we have quite a challenge in quite across a number. Like you said, let's dissect it a little bit. We have economic challenges. We have infrastructure challenges. We have energy challenges. We had quite a number of challenges, not to mention the external ones. So let me start with the simplest ones, the infrastructure ones. Not simple in terms of size, but simple in terms of clarity. It's quite obvious, and you can deal with it more strategically. Across the country, the network of transport, for example, has been basically redone. All over the place. In certain segments, like you mentioned, healthcare, national system for health insurance has been launched in 3 governorates so far up in the north. So you look at each, in the south, and I know we will go into that in details, certain programs have been established to support small and medium enterprise and even microfinance. For certain parts of the country. I mean, I just visited the other week one of the huge projects in the National Company for Protected Agriculture, cultivated greenhouse, basically cultivation. It's huge. It's huge. Hundreds of thousands of square kilometers with substantial cost. Very successful. Quite strategic. So agriculture that you mentioned is up there on the priorities as well, and so on and so forth.
Agriculture, there are even different sectors in each area or each location. We're speaking about housing from one side, infrastructure on the other, opportunities or jobs, which means mega projects, and even, as you said, respectively here, the macro, micro, and small and
SMEs,
yes,
and microfinance,
yes, and definitely services.
Of course, yeah.
Because these are all sectors that were carried out in all or in the time span altogether.
From 2014 till, let's stop at 2019, because the pandemic, it's another story. We can have another episode on that. But our GDP has grown from 3.2 to 5.9 between 2014 and 2019. Unemployment, it was over 14%. It's down to 7% again before the pandemic. Our foreign exchange reserve has tripled from 15 to 40 billion dollars. So the performance has been really impressive up to 2019. The pandemic, different story, and then the global challenges. I mean, now you look at where the world is going. However, we'll talk about resilience in a minute, but let me tell you about unemployment. One project like the Suez Canal is going to create 1 million jobs by 2030, the economic free zone. And that will obviously impact a very, very dear part of our country, which is the peninsula of Sinai, going forward. So I think the vision was quite holistic. Let's be fair. It did not exclude any geography or any sector or any segment or any social category. And there was a safety net. You and I discussed many times the safety nets of the society, the more vulnerable groups, and how we can take care of those groups. Over 50 million Egyptians are benefiting from social support systems and programs. Our social support programs have grown from 1% of our GDP to 3.5 in less than 7 years. So it's going all in tandem. There are challenges, many of them, like everywhere else, but I think we have to be really honest and realistic in terms of looking at the big picture. where were we at 2014 and where have we become in 2000? Yes, 22, 23, 24 are probably going to be interesting, but we'll get there. This country will get there. We will all get there together.
That's our hope. That's our,
Yeah, I'm quite confident.
We're all filled of such a hope.
Sure.
You spoke here about resilience. The word resilience is the name of the game, as they say, emerging as resilient. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has communicated strong optimism regarding Egypt's ability to navigate the global financial turbulence that you've been speaking about, that we're witnessing. And that, he said, through the diligent work, robust planning and strategic governance. How far have we carried out with that, and to which extent really did we succeed to reach?
Sure. The global financial system has become almost like a little village. So the Feds in America increased the interest rate by 0.1%. We lost $22 billion in 1 week in hot money. So the global economy is quite connected. It's not just us. I mean, Turkey has been very badly hit,
hard hit,
extremely
yes,
badly hit. India, the 5th largest economy in the world, have 50% of its population under the poverty line.
Inflation is in the United States is incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Germany, Europe.
Yes, Europe.
Some of the best economies in the world. Germany is really going through. England. So you name it. All of us, we have challenges. So zooming into Egypt, I would claim that the vision and the approach and the execution has been quite realistic. There is no illusions of you know, it's going to be an easy ride. It hasn't been. We still have a way to go. Now, we've been through much worse. If you're talking about resilience, we as people, there is quite a number of changes we have to make, even on the micro level, on the personal level, on the family level. We do have certain consumption patterns that you have to deal with. You and I have spoken about this before. We have to break the poverty cycle. So a family with limited income, limited education, we have to break that cycle. We have to learn how to fish rather than keep getting free fish from the aid programs. And that's very critical, that's very important. This will not go on forever. We really have to, each one of us has to
change patterns.
Be encouraged by the aggressiveness, the resilience, and when you watch the president talking optimistically and quite confident about the future, this has to be infectious. We have to have that infection.
Actually, you're speaking about that because lots and lots of work has been done to prepare us for
Indeed.
the next stage,
Sure.
even though that we were hardly hit and with no expectations to some of the world challenges we have. Has anyone expected the Russian-Ukrainian war?
I must say we've been quite smart. I mean,
turbulences that are coming, that is surrounding us from every place.
Yes. And Libya, Sudan, I mean, who would have expected that we will have
an earthquake like what
problem in
happened
Sudan? We have an earthquake and
in Morocco.
Strategic planning requires that you have a good contingency plans for anything that can. So you really have to have a cushion to be able to deal with that, regardless. However, I must say we did have some of that when it came to the war on Ukraine in terms of food imports and grains crisis and so on. We did go immediately to other sources. We limited, we rationalized our local production, and we were able to secure. I mean, I don't know, have you been to a place or a store to buy bread and you didn't find it?
No, I usually find it.
No, you always find it.
But the problem is that how it reflects on the supply chain of the whole world.
That's another problem.
And that raises the prices of everything. I mean, it's the supply and demand. And it's the quantity and the ability of supply and demand. It has other repercussions.
The second largest economy in the world, China, is going through huge problems, huge challenges.
Yes.
You're talking about supply chains. That's another story. It's quite complex. So I think, considering all that, back to the main question, resilience, I think we've done so far so good, and we need more.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy ride again. Yeah.
It will never be enough.
We have
whatever
to
we
be
do.
confident about that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Here, the state has stressed that indefinitely. I have to quote here President Sisi another time by saying that we had had a very important battle with construction and infrastructure.
Yeah.
And infrastructure and development.
Yeah.
And it was not less than how we battled, or the battle we made with terrorism. How do you view that, and how was infrastructure an important part of Egypt's development or sustainable development vision?
Well, I mean, it was a choice. You inherited a house or a place that is very badly, in a very bad shape. You either spend a lot of time trying to fix it, and most likely you're not going to be able to, because you have to leave it and then fix it and come back, or build something else from new. And that's what I think was the wisest decision. So we had to build a whole new city, new roads, get out of the congestion. Cairo is going to be around 40 million by 2030, I guess. And what's going to happen with that? So you really have to be realistic about the problem and the solution. Yes, we spent billions and billions on new society, new settlements, if you want to call it. Cities, settlements, and so on. But we did also did a lot of progress in terms of rehabilitation and renovations and dealing with bottlenecks.
But that's not it. I mean, when we speak about infrastructure, we're not speaking only about the new cities.
We're going to talk about electrical grids and
we're
power
speaking about also roads and highways, and we're speaking about tunnels and ports and all these. And from your point of view, it's not just overcoming the challenge of overpopulation, but also opening a horizon of opportunity for them to work. And hence came the importance of creating a conducive atmosphere for investors and or for attracting foreign direct investments.
Of course, it's been interesting. The flow of foreign direct investment around the world has been interesting in light of the international economic situation. Egypt has attracted 3 times the number of billions of dollars coming to the economy over, again, the same period, 14 to 19. So the impact of those projects, even those projects themselves, have attracted a lot of international interest in terms of foreign direct investment. How is that going to impact the economy, the population, the society? It's going to be positive impact. It depends on what sector or what geography you're talking about, which I mean, ports and, let's say, Suez Canal and so on will impact definitely our population in Sinai, for example. The south, the roads, all the developments in the tourism, the Egyptian museum, all these. I mean, the social, the artistic, and all the creative industry. That's a completely different story, and that the investment in that space has been quite substantial.
You just wrote about this very particular area that I really want to raise. I really wanted to raise in my next question, so you brought it up, Sinai. And the development of Sinai was a true prior file for Egypt. Integrating Sinai into the developmental plans was a prior file for Egypt.
Sure.
Right, before I move on with our discussion and to speak about Sinai, let me here have the second report that Egypt allocates 17 million pounds to implement 360 development projects in Sinai in 2022-2023. This is according to Minister Hala Said. Let's watch.
The Ministry of Planning and Economic Development has issued a report on the features of the Citizens Investment Plan for North Sinai and South Sinai for 2022-2023. Hala Said, Minister of Planning and Economic Development, said that the Sustainable Development Plan for the fiscal year 2022-2023 pays special attention to spatial policies and programs aimed at achieving convergence in living standards and incomes between regions by addressing existing development gaps and advancing development efforts in accordance with the components, characteristics, and priorities of each region. In this regard, the efforts of spatial development were aimed at achieving integrated rural development to narrow the income gap and limit migration flows to urban areas and give high priority to the development of the Sinai Peninsula and the governorates of Upper Egypt within the framework of a coherent and integrated development program, in addition to giving a strong development impetus to the promising areas in the governorates to take advantage of existing opportunities and provide more job opportunities for young people. She explained that these directions come in agreement with the Sustainable Development Strategy within the framework of Egypt's Vision 2030 and the consolidation of the principles of human rights in enjoying a decent life on the basis of justice and in a sustainable way. She stressed that community participation is the basic guarantee for the localization of sustainable development goals at the local level, achieving balanced regional development and bridging development gaps between different governorates, in line with Egypt's Vision 2030 and the 17th goal of the Global Sustainable Development Goals. Partnerships to achieve the goals within the framework of a comprehensive and integrated participatory approach in order to achieve the principle of leaving no one behind. Regarding North Sinai, Al-Said explained that the number of development projects in the governorate reaches 152 projects, and that the value of public investments directed to the governorate in the 2022-2023 plan amounts to 7.9 billion Egyptian pounds, an increase of 27.4% over the 2021-2022 plan. With regard to the governorate of South Sinai, the number of development projects in the governorate reaches 208 projects, and the value of public investments directed to the governorate amounts to 9.2 billion Egyptian pounds, an increase of 124% over the 2021-2022 plan.
Right, welcome back. And Dr. Hisham, the country is really implementing a comprehensive national plan to change the course of life in Sinai, totally, dramatically, integrated in all, from every aspect.
Sure.
Why Sinai is a prior file for Egypt, and what exactly is the country doing there in a trial to integrate this very precious part
Sure.
to the whole national developmental plans?
The Sinai Peninsula is not important to Egypt, it's important to the whole world. It's the most central spot in the trade routes around the world. It connects 3 continents to the rest of the world, or 2 continents to the other 3. It has always been critically important, and we had major challenges in Sinai when it comes to safety, and the president and our military have done quite well in basically getting rid of all the terrorism threats and so on. So developing Sinai is definitely a huge priority. What has been going on is quite substantial in terms of economic development for the whole of Sinai, and particularly in the northern part. The projects vary from bringing in major projects, particularly in tourism and infrastructure. There is quite a substantial mineral wealth in Sinai, white sand and others that are
white and black, both.
Exactly, and the government has spared no effort in developing those sectors, and they require. They create jobs, they create opportunities and wealth. The Suez Canal extension and the Suez Canal Free Zone will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. The nearest, obviously, geographic
we're speaking about
impact.
the Suez Canal route or the or canal, or we're speaking about the industrial zones?
Both the economic zone, the free
And the
economic
economic
zone,
zone,
and the
indeed.
extension of the Suez Canal revenue. Just a side note, has tripled since the expansion.
Yes, indeed.
And that's very important. In essence, Sinai, of course, it's quite important. It's our eastern gateway. It's the Asian part of Egypt, and it's our connection to our strategic partners in Saudi, Jordan, and the rest of the Arab world. So it's a critically important part of the country, and the government is doing its part in basically integrating the economy of Sinai into our development plans.
Very much indeed. Plus, of course, it has enormous opportunities for investments. Let go the green hydrogen and changing the energy or changing into clean energy and more. All these are opportunities that exist in Sinai. Also, the country in parallel has gone far or way in this in the delta or the north of Egypt in different sectors and projects, ports, and please illustrate.
Yes, the new ports on the Mediterranean, as well as the existing sectors like agriculture and cultivation. Ports are part of the infrastructure, and the new ports that have been developed are quite impressive. Tourism on the northern coast and Al Alamein, new city, and we all know that the parallel corridor on the west side of the Nile in the Western Desert, new city, new Mansoura, all the cities in the delta have had an extension on the western side of the Nile, the Western Desert, again because of the availability of water and infrastructure there. So obviously, if you want to extend an existing population and economic zones, you have to extend the infrastructure. You have to invest in energy. You have to invest in housing and so on. That has been quite substantial.
Linkage. Speaking about linkage, how do you view linking ports from the Suez till Alexandria, for an instant, and more?
The substantial, actually, project that is still in the concept phase, where all ports of Egypt will be linked somehow, land, air, and sea, and that has been done before in other parts of the world. And you will end up inevitably with competitive options to our own connections globally, whether it's through BRICS, the new projects that BRICS are doing. It will take years and years, obviously. Our ports and our position will never be compromised because of our position, but also our excellence in terms of providing our logistics services. Supply chain management and supply chain challenges around the world are probably going to be the most important part of the global economy that will impact growth. So our projects in that space are probably well-timed and are going to help quite a lot.
Not leaving anyone behind, the slogan of our new republic. And I'll use this slogan twice, but the first one would be continuing on with our developmental projects, and from the north we go to Upper Egypt, where a number of projects, for the very first time, Upper Egypt has been under the spotlight.
Yes.
Please.
Upper Egypt has a very unique position. We've already agreed that each population concentration in Egypt, each governorate even, has its own challenges. History, economy, and so on. Upper Egypt has not had the attention it's having now for decades, for quite a number of years. It has been left to its own
totally neglected
reasons. Yeah, neglected is the right word. Right now, I'm aware of quite a substantial number of projects, millions of dollars being pumped into the economy there at all levels. The challenges in Upper Egypt has been multifaceted. The needs have been for education, training, healthcare, infrastructure, industrial development, finance, microfinance, macrofinance, project finance. The government is taking a holistic approach, so probably from the bottom up, so the most vulnerable groups have been given opportunity to have access to education, healthcare, vocational training, and progress in life in general. I'm aware of a number of excellent small and medium enterprise SME financing that has been financed mainly by both our government and the international community. I was just talking to someone the other day who are financing a plant, a big operation for manufacturing garments, and they are looking at exporting, and so on. So from the family, the nuclear unit, up to the city, to the whole region down Upper Egypt, the government has been giving quite a lot of attention.
This linkage, I mean, here from the very north till the very south, from the very east to the very west, how is that important, and how does that reflect on the future of Egypt at this stage? No, at the upcoming stage.
Sure. So the integration, the economic integration, is quite critical in the economy. Speaking of linkage, the next rail connection will be from Alexandria to Aswan, 6,000 kilometers, one stop. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be an amazing project. Yes, taking a holistic approach to the economy is very important because, as we agreed, each sub region in Egypt has its own challenges. So the impact of that integration that you refer to on the overall picture, the overall economy, is going to be substantial, and it's quite important. And that hasn't been neglected in the overall picture. So the vision of the president and the government is comprehensive. There are priorities, let's agree. I mean, there will be priorities, always. In terms of locations, vulnerable groups have to take priority, and economic sectors that will do the biggest impact on our economy. So you cannot develop a sector that because it looks nice.
Priority developmental projects that will have its income or its
big
revenue.
impact. We need big impact.
Yes.
So yes, you can invest in food because we like that, but it's not going to impact your economy.
Not just
Infrastructure will bring you more investments, but if you grow more food, you will just consume it. It's not going to help you a lot.
But
you still need it.
Yes.
Okay.
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 This is one important issue. Of course, that has taken tremendous effort, but also it has put us in an inevitable choice for carrying out with reforms that had its own burden on citizens.
There's a hardship that we have to go through.
And hence there came the linking between supporting the human capital because of what it is suffering from, and at the same time sustainable development. How do you view that?
Sure. I'll give you one example. Takaful and Karama is the largest, the globally largest social support system, both by the number of beneficiaries and the size of funding.
Hayat Karima also.
And Hayat Karima. So in terms of protecting the most vulnerable groups, I think we're doing a great job. Healthcare, we have eradicated virus C, and we're doing much more. So in terms of really protecting the human capital that you refer to, I think the government is doing a great job. The more important part, in my view, is developing the sustainable growth in terms of education, vocational training, creating opportunities, protecting the achievements that we've already achieved, and creating awareness, simple awareness. I mean, you and I can discuss the challenges, but we will maybe have a debate, a daily debate on that, but we have to go back to the facts. Yes, there have been achievements, there will be challenges.
Definitely. And challenges, what I really want to end up with here, and yes. I would want to understand from you what are the challenges that we are facing and we will be facing at this upcoming stage.
Okay, I'll go back to your last question, human capital. That's very important. We have to...
Human capital's a capital in terms of richness, in terms of covering them, in terms of supporting them, what?
Developing the human capital. We need high caliber. We need to get rid of illiteracy altogether. We need to develop knowledge economy. We
need to know the challenges, because they're telling me here that we have only 1 minute left.
Okay, I'll go to the most important one. We have to have a governance review. We have to look at how do we integrate the whole government behind the president's vision in terms of dealing with challenges. We still have issues in terms of integration. We really need to streamline the whole process. That's my last word.
Right. That's not a challenge, by the way. That's a recommendation, but okay.
Okay, you're right. Okay.
Right. So, Dr. Hisham Abdel Salam, Economic Development Advisor, we thank you so much for being with us and for your input here. And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode of Daily Debate. Next debate will be on Sunday. Many thanks for watching, and good night.